Open your hearts. Let's give them a round of applause. And thanks very much to the band.
I'll just shout. Oh, that's better. Everyone okay this afternoon? Who's a rugby fan? Who's like looking at that clock, thinking, when's it going to be 4:45? 4:45, England, Scotland, okay? Not quite yet. My notification just buzzed and tells me that Oxford United are losing at half-time, which is terrible. Terrible news. Absolutely terrible. Intercession can happen somewhere over there. Thank you, everybody. Just a few thanks to say. First of all, thank you, everybody, for coming. It wouldn't have been the same without you. I think we can say that, can't we? Just understand that for some of us, we love conferences, don't we? We love a good conference. Give me more talks, give me more content, more people to talk to. And some of us who are a bit more, no more talks, please. Can we go home? Can I go in a corner somewhere? Wherever you fall on that spectrum, thank you for being here. I understand it's an investment, isn't it, to come to these things. It's a financial investment, investment of time, investment of energy, investment of availability as well. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for all those doing all sorts of practical administration. Absolutely brilliant job. Andy and Jenna, particularly there. And Rachel as well. Can't see Rachel. And their teams, all the people who've been volunteering, all the speakers, seminar hosts, all those sorts of people. These guys at the back have done brilliantly. Josh and his team there. It's the usual thing with the PA. If it goes wrong, you all know it. And if it doesn't go wrong, nobody mentions it. It hasn't gone at all wrong. Quite the opposite. So Josh has done an absolutely brilliant job with his team. And thank you very much. And thank you to the musicians as well. It's really precious, isn't it? Just this team leading us. That doesn't take 5 minutes, does it, by the way, to pull together worship and teams like that. I live with the person who organizes it. It takes weeks and weeks of preparation, musical preparation, spiritual preparation, administrative preparation, all sorts. And Keith and Josh and John and Anna just done brilliantly. Thank you for serving us. It's been a good couple of days, has it not? A few highlights. That chocolate brownie last night was good. Is that just me? It was quite rich, wasn't it, in every sense? Maybe a summary of the weekend. It's great to have Lynn with us today. What a blessing. Just the bringer of the life of God. Absolutely wonderful to have Lynn with us. And Anderson as well yesterday. Just did brilliantly, didn't he? Speaking about from the life of Moses, making thriving leaders. It was great to have Jo Hargreaves with us, wasn't it, yesterday? Need to invite her back, I feel. She was just, what a blessing she was. And Liam talking us last night about desperation and faith. There's an Oxford United fan who can say that. Desperation and faith from the story of Elijah. That was right, sorry. As well. I should just mention, it's just as Lynn was talking earlier, Lynn also, she runs this charity which serves all sorts of disadvantaged people in South Africa. She's selling various things which have been made by people in South Africa, and it's just a way of raising money for the charity, raising money and honouring those men and women who make those things. So they're out on the stall, out there. Please do, when you go, just buy something. It'll be a blessing. It's a way of blessing Lynn, blessing the ministry, blessing those out there. So we've had a good couple of days. We've expressed vision for the coming years, to be a family of thriving churches, advancing the kingdom. And we've even got a nice new logo. What is it? That is the question of the weekend, isn't it? I forget what, Elijah and Moses are like, what is it? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it Superman? It's an arrow. Spaceship, okay. Any more? A tree, a Christmas tree, yeah, happy Christmas, yeah, a tree, a tent. Basically, it is modern art. It's all of those things. It's whatever you see, it's that, which is the genius of it. In all seriousness, it is a tree. It speaks of the life, the fruitfulness, the thriving that God's calling us to. It's an arrow. We're trying to advance. We're advancing God's kingdom. It is a sense of a tent. We're moving. Isn't that the life of faith that we live? We pick up our tent, we move on, living by faith. A spaceship, that I'm a little less short on that one. Mars for Jesus. Or Antarctica. Thriving churches advancing the kingdom. Sounds good, doesn't it? So how is it going to happen? Just got half an hour. How is it going to happen? Is it going to be through our amazing organizational skills? No, it's not. No, it's not. Is it going to be through our amazing preaching? No, definitely not. Is it going to be through our training of leaders? Is it that's the magic thing that's going to make this thing happen? No. All important, impressive things that we need to be doing. But can I suggest another key ingredient? If we're going to see Jesus, thank you, or a tree. If we're going to see anything in our hearts that we carry come to fruition, if we're going to see this vision come to fruition, there is a different, absolute game-changing element that has to be at the center. And that's simply the element of faith. Faith is the absolute missing ingredient. It is the ace card that you play that beats everything else. And Jesus loved faith. You ever been to an airport and you see those sniffer dogs sniffing out things that shouldn't be there? Jesus was like a sniffer dog looking for faith. And when he found it, he loved it. It pleased him. When he didn't find it, it didn't please him. What I'd love to do, just in these few minutes we've got together, is to look at a story from the life of Jesus where Jesus finds great faith. And he finds it from an unlikely source. Please can you open your Bible one last time to Matthew chapter 15. Matthew 15, verses 21 to 28. We're going to look at this story together. And as I say, Jesus finds faith, great faith, from an unlikely source. Here we go. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Jesus didn't answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Oh, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "Oh, it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." "Yes, it is, Lord," she said. "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed at that moment. Jesus loves and commends this woman's faith. She had a clear objective. She had a vision to see her daughter healed. And the vision happens, the objective happens. Why? Because of faith. That is the key game-changing element in seeing her vision realized. I just felt God put this story in my heart the last few weeks for us as we leave together today, to look at the faith of this woman. We're in 2025, 75 years ago. It was 1950. Important year. The Korean War began. Mother Teresa started her charity in Calcutta. Steve Thomas was born. It's true. Baby Steve. Clement Attlee won a general election. And The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was published. C.S. Lewis, just a mile or two from here, had the year or two previously started writing that amazing story of Narnia. The lion, obviously representing Jesus, the witch, obviously representing Satan, the enemy, and the wardrobe. The wardrobe which opens up a new world, where on one side of the world is English country houses, long, boring summers, world wars, and kids playing hide and seek, yeah? On the other side of that wardrobe is supernatural adventures and reigning and ruling as kings and queens. C.S. Lewis, it seems, uses this sort of literary device of something which takes you to a different supernatural world. Lewis Carroll did the same, didn't he? In Alice in Wonderland, you go down the rabbit hole and woof, you're into a different world. J.K. Rowling, you go into platform 9 3/4, and bang, you're into Harry Potter's Into a Different World. These children go through a wardrobe into a different world. Faith opens up a new world of possibilities, of supernatural life, just like that wardrobe. And I think that's what we see in this story of this lady. It's like she exercises and she walks through that wardrobe. We don't know very much about this lady, but we do know that she had great faith. What can we learn from this lady's faith? Why was it so great? Faith is often like a bar of soap, isn't it? It's like we know it, but what does it actually mean? What's the definition of it? Sometimes it's not so easy to grab hold of. Let me suggest 3 elements which characterize this woman's faith: tenacity, humility, and simplicity. Tenacity, humility, and simplicity. First of all, tenacity. This woman, she doesn't half persevere. There's a tenacity, a resilience that shines through. Verse 21, leaving that place, leaving Galilee, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Tyre and Sidon outside Israel, northeast of Israel, in what is today Lebanon. 2 towns away from Israel. Jesus is at the height of his ministry, the height of his popularity. If you look at the previous chapter, we've got the emotional news of John the Baptist dying. We've got 5,000 people being miraculously fed. We've got Jesus walking on water. If you look at the rest of the chapter, we've got 4,000 people being healed, being fed. Chapter 17, we've got the transfiguration. Jesus at the height of his activity, of his ministry, and he needs a break. He needs a pause. He needs a retreat. He knows if I go to Tyre and Sidon, I'm unlikely to be followed by crowds and crowds of people into Gentile territory. Except his retreat gets interrupted. When people heard the word Tyre and Sidon in the first century, they had a reputation that came to mind, an association that came to mind. For years, Anna and I had the privilege of living in the great nation of Belgium. No need to laugh. We love living in Brussels. We love living in Belgium. There is that English famous pub quiz question, isn't there, though? Can you name 10 famous Belgians? Tintin and Snowy don't count. Captain Haddock doesn't count. Poirot doesn't count. Those people are real. Can you name 10 famous people from Tyre and Sidon? Probably not. I certainly can't. But we could all name one, I think. There's one person from the Old Testament who was from Tyre and Sidon. One woman who was from Sidon. And her name was Jezebel. Ooh. The wicked witch of the Old Testament. I think we're getting a bit giddy, aren't we? It's nearly time to finish. The wicked witch of the Old Testament who married Ahab, equally wicked, terrible king. She was a Canaanite woman who became queen in Israel and did appalling things. So Jesus walks into Tyre and Sidon. He walks into Jezebel land. Forget Disneyland, Peppa Pig World. He walks into Jezebel land. And who does he meet in Jezebel land? A Canaanite woman. That is the only time in the New Testament that a woman is ever described as a Canaanite woman. So Matthew tells us that Jesus leaves Jewish Israel behind him and walks into Canaan, walks into Sidon, and walks into Jezebel land and meets a Canaanite woman. A Canaanite woman who asks for help. She might be from the wrong side of the border, as it were, but she's also just a mum who wants her daughter to live. In verse 23, Jesus is silent. Jesus blanks her. And then the disciples, those lovely men, ignore the woman and say to Jesus, hey, we've got to get rid of this lady. Come on, you need a break, you need a rest, you're here for a retreat. Jesus speaks, doesn't speak to her. She's blanked her. Now he talks in her hearing, but to the disciples. Said, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Jesus is just saying, I've only got 3 years of ministry. I've got 3 years to give to the people of Israel. I've got to serve Israel. Where Israel has failed in its call to to be God's servant. I've got to embody their call. I've got to be there in Israel. I'm going to die. I'm going to be resurrected. I'll be ascended. Then the Spirit will come, and then we can go global. Then it's Tyre, and it's Sidon, and it's Egypt, and it's Rome, and all the rest. But right now, I've got a mission from my Father. I've come for the lost sheep of Israel first. So she gets blanked by Jesus. She gets rebuffed by Jesus. Doesn't give up though, does she? She overhears Jesus, and she kneels down, and she prays a simple prayer. Lord, help me. And then Jesus does address her. It's quite an address, isn't it? Seems like Jesus is sparring with this lady. He's sparring with her. Is there any faith here? Am I going to find faith in Jezebel land of all places? Probably wants to teach his disciples something as well, but he's also sparring with her. Obviously, we don't see his facial expression. We don't hear his tone of voice. He say it with a wink and a smile. She comes back, though. Wonderful answer from this woman. She doesn't take no for an answer. She just says, yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. The inference being, I only need a crumb and my daughter will be healed. And Jesus says, oh yeah, now that is great faith. Like the sniffer dog, yeah, I found it. There's great faith here, and she gets what she needs to receive. This woman is tenacious. She perseveres, like another woman in the New Testament, no? Who doesn't just brush up against Jesus, but grabs hold of his garment. She cries out once before being blanked by Jesus. Jesus doesn't say a word, Matthew says. So the one who by a word created the whole universe doesn't say a word to this lady. The one who is the word, the Logos, doesn't say a word. That ever happened to any of us? You prayed, like the word doesn't say a word. There's an example here that we're watching here of resilience, tenacity. You're in good company if that's you. She cries out a second time before she gets this provocative response from Jesus, and then she comes back a third time. I just think for a lot of us today, perseverance is the order of the day. Tenacity is the order of the day. A tenacious faith is the order of the day. Great faith is accompanied by or built on tenacity. Comfy slippers or mud-caked boots? Which is it? Mud-caked boots speak of tenacity, of perseverance. Just ask yourself, where is God calling you to be tenacious? For your church, for your family, for your own life, for our family of churches. Do we want to settle for this? Like, thus far but no more? Or are we going to tenaciously, by faith, press in for more? The great leaders are tenacious and they develop resilience. It's great faith. First thing to say about this great faith, there is tenacity. Second thing, humility. Humility, tenacity and humility. Verse 25, that just strikes me as one of the most powerful moments of the Gospels. The woman came and knelt before Jesus. Lord, help me, she said. From the wrong side of the border, rebuffed, ignored, put down, and her response is to kneel and ask for help. The partner of faith is humility. The enemy of faith is pride. There's a supernatural miracle here. Her girl is healed, but it's preceded by faith, which is built on humility. I am no great mathematician, no great physicist. I even have to look at my notes to say E equals mc squared. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Thank you. What about this simple equation for us? Humility plus faith equals supernatural breakthrough. Humility plus faith equals supernatural breakthrough. Faith without humility becomes presumption. Faith with humility releases the supernatural. Any of us want any more of that? It comes from a place of humility. This vision that we've articulated as being thriving churches, advancing kingdom. It'll only really happen if we choose faith, which is partnered with humility. Pride is a blockage to faith. It's like a drain that gets blocked by the leaves. Nothing can flow through. Pride is a blockage to faith. Humility is a building block to faith, which in turn releases the supernatural. We see in this woman a courageous humility, a tenacious humility, if we could say that. She took a risk in talking to Jesus. She took a risk in answering him back. She is courageous. There's a bold humility about this woman, a risk-taking humility. We can sometimes think humility means, well, I'll be quiet, I'll sit back, won't take risks, won't rock the boat. It's not true. Humility is not a synonym for timidity. Humility partners faith. Do you notice the lady's name? No? Anyone see the original Greek? No. Matthew just calls her a Canaanite woman. Mark, who tells us this story as well, calls her a Syro-Phoenician woman. She is Mrs. Nobody. We do like it when people know our names, don't we? It's quite helpful having this, isn't it? It's just something that just gets us a little bit when we say, oh, could you just remind me of your name? Lived in Belgium all those years. It meant that I had to say repeatedly, je m'appelle Richard. My wife is laughing because that sounds as dumb in French as it does in English. The name Richard, it's kind of like being called Norman or Barry. It's like not a cool name, Richard. I just say again and again, bonjour, je suis Richard. Her name isn't important, and actually neither is ours. Humility is the bedrock of faith. God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Back in October, some of us were here for our celebration, and I nicely, politely tried to say, let's not be lukewarm. Lukewarmness is not great. Lukewarmness and pride, those are two things that God is not neutral about. Should we have tea? Should we have coffee? Red or blue? Should we eat the chicken today or the vegetable? It doesn't matter. God is not neutral about lukewarmness or pride. Like one makes him sick and the other he opposes. I would urge all of us to do all we can to get rid of lukewarmness and to get rid of any pride in our hearts. This is great faith, built on tenacity, built on humility. Thirdly, built on simplicity. This woman gives a 3-word prayer. Lord, help me. It's not very eloquent, is it? Not very impressive. Oh, and she does it on her knees. I would suggest that is a model of Christian discipleship, Christian living. Like 3-word prayers whilst we're on our knees. We can just think we're so clever and so wise and so gifted. And maybe we are. In the English-speaking world, we have endless conferences, and we write endless books, and we make training courses, and we talk, and we talk, and we talk, and we have podcasts, and yet, in the world, the church is growing the most in Africa, Asia, and South America. Iran and Afghanistan are 2 of the highest growing churches in the world at the moment, percentage-wise. There's a report a couple of years ago that said in Iran, more people have become Christians in the last 20 years than the previous 13 centuries. Maybe our complexity in the West doesn't always help us. She just says, Lord, help me. Lord. It's the word Kyrios in Greek. That is a word which dominates the pages of the New Testament. It's one of the most significant words of the New Testament. Like Caesar is not Kyrios, Jesus is Kyrios. Speaks of the lordship, the supremacy of Christ. And she, like Yahweh, is Kyrios. And this lady says, Kyrios, Lord, help. It's a basic word, isn't it? Help. She says, Lord, help. As you help me, you help. You be active. I'll be tenacious, but at the end of the day, I need your help. Lord, help me. Me, the third out of those three words. In pride, we stop kneeling before Kyrios and we start standing on our own 2 feet. In humility, we live under the lordship of Jesus on our knees. We've heard the vision. This is the strategy. On our knees, Lord, help us. That's the strategy. That's the simplicity of faith, which I think God is calling us to. Complexity kills growth. Simplicity enables it. Simplicity is a friend of humility, like they're besties. Trouble is, simplicity, it kind of grates with our pride, doesn't it? Think, oh, come on, we need more words, we need more color, need more stuff, more complicated. But actually, simplicity is at the heart of this woman's faith, and it's faith which attracts Jesus. When I was 19, 20, I had a gap year, went and did a year with a church, and I read that famous book, Celebration of Discipline, by Roger Foster. Many of us, I'm sure, read that, yeah? Old book, written in the 70s and 80s. I read, I'd recently finished school. My GCSEs, my 9 or 10 GCSEs, most of my GCSEs were B grades, back in the days where you had Bs. I have 3 A levels, 2 of them are Bs. I have a degree in theology, I have a 2-1. That's a B, isn't it? Like, I'm the ultimate B grade student. And then I read this story as a young man. This how Foster opens his book. First paragraph of that famous book, written 40 years ago. Superficiality is the curse of our age. The doctrine of instant satisfaction is a primary spiritual problem. The desperate need today is not for a greater number of intelligent people or gifted people, but for deep people. The doctrine of instant satisfaction is a primary spiritual problem. The desperate need today isn't for a greater number of intelligent people or gifted people, but for deep people. There's nothing shallow about this lady. Let's not confuse shallowness with simplicity. Those are not the same. I'm not talking about simplistic, I'm using the word simplicity. I'm not arguing for a shallow faith, rather a simple depth, or a deep simplicity, if we could put it that way. Amen? Amen. Great faith, found in an unlikely source, a Canaanite woman in Jezebel land, and yet brings such pleasure to Jesus and brings supernatural breakthrough. 2 things I trust are close to our hearts: bringing pleasure to Jesus and seeing supernatural breakthrough. Great faith, combined or built on 3 things: tenacity, humility, and simplicity. I would suggest that if we're trying to build thriving churches that advance the kingdom, can we build it on these 3 things? Let's build tenaciously. Let's build with humility. And let's build with simplicity. Could I leave us with a final picture? Could you just have in your minds the picture of a pendulum? Think of a pendulum. I said I'm not a great physicist, but there's some gravity at work, isn't there? A pendulum that goes from one side to the other. I imagine that there's some of us in the room and we look at this lady and we swing one way. We think, yeah, I identify with her. Yes, I think I'm not very gifted. I think I haven't really got much to offer. I think I was born in the wrong side of the border, as it were. I haven't got a great edge. I'm not very good. I think to you, Jesus would just say, all of that is like secondary. Faith is what counts. Your confidence is in the Lord. Imagine there's a few of us in the room who, if we're really honest, we actually probably swing the other way. And we might say, I don't really necessarily identify with a Canaanite woman. I think I'm quite gifted. I've actually I'm pretty smart. I'm quite successful. Got quite a lot of things to bring to the table. Well, guess what? I think Jesus would say the same thing. All of that is secondary. It's faith that counts. Your confidence is in the Lord. Can we all just right now ask yourself, which side do you swing of that pendulum? When you've answered the question, can we all just meet in the middle? Be people of faith who say our confidence is in the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Supernatural provision lies on the other side of the wardrobe of true faith. If we stay on one side, we stay with siblings squabbling and playing party games. If we dare live a life of faith and go through the wardrobe, there's adventure and provision and challenge and change and reigning for Jesus. I know which is the better place we want to live, yeah? I wonder if Keith and your team could come back up. We've just got a few minutes, 10 minutes before we need to finish. We're going to sing a couple of songs. Church plants taking root and seeing growth lies on the other side of faith. Radical new ministries, those bubbles that Tracy spoke about to us on the first day, coming up out of the bottle, lie on the other side of true faith. A vision that sees our nation properly changed lies on the other side of faith. We choose to live by faith according to these three things. I just want us to finish our conference, finish our afternoon by just bowing before the Lord Jesus, following the example of this lady who offers us a wonderful example of faith. Can we finish by declaring that our confidence is in the Lord, is in Kyrios, the one who supremely reigns over the whole of the universe? Can we stand? I'd just like us to sing, to express worship to Jesus, and to really to use this moment of singing as a way of saying, yeah, I choose faith. I choose faith of tenacity, humility, and simplicity. I choose to go through that wardrobe. I choose adventure and supernatural provision by bowing the knee to the wonderful lordship of Christ. Let's sing together.